Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to do a list that we discovered was very difficult.
We had this table covered in games, and we didn't realize how many two-player games we owned. We knew we had a lot, but we have a lot we love, and we could have easily probably doubled this list. We made ourselves pick 6 only.
We also, there's a limit. So this list is, we haven't said what it is, but this list is games that are designed for 2 players. So they have a player count of 2. They might have a player count 2 to 4, but it has to then be in teams, and it gets weird. There's a couple of games that, really didn't make the list, and there's a couple of games I don't own that I know are very popular and I really enjoyed, such as Star Wars Rebellion, Star Wars in a Box. But it's just hard for us because we play a lot of 2-player games. So, do you want to start or should I?
You can start.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the 2-player Caverna. I love worker placement, and so this was a no-brainer for me. I love this type of game anyways. Nice and fast. It works really well, and I can kick his butt at it, which also really helps. But it's a great 2-player game. I feel like there's a lot of meat here, but it's not long, and you really get that. You're getting all the food and resources. And it just always feels really good as you are creating your cave and exploring it. Yeah,
you're digging through your cave, and it works similar to the game Agricola. If you guys aren't familiar with that, and that's all right, what you have is a cave where you're digging, exploring out, and getting space to put in new tiles. Those tiles give you more actions to get more resources to then build more. And you want to try and get an engine going that will let you continue to get resources and then complete your optimal cave and give you points while you go. So,
yep.
We've got enough that we've got to put them on the floor or a chair. So this one is a lot lighter. Now, what's funny is this was an impulse buy at Target. I haven't seen it at Target since. It's by Mattel. And I sat there and hemmed and hawed and went, huh? But I've been impressed. This is one of my favorite 2-player light games. This is not going to cause you to think or brain burn. But what you're doing is you've got 5 card actions in front of you. And you're either going to take a stone, put a stone out on your tableau, on your board. And what you're trying to do is get combinations of the different colors of stones. They're basically gems, but they're plastic gems that are in a bowl and a bag. You have one stack that you can always choose with one of your cards that lets you flip over and be able to use all of your actions again. You get a special action from it, and it's all a spirit animal. This doesn't sound very entertaining, but it really is. It's a 2-player back and forth. You're trying to get the colors before your opponent. You also have a coyote that you move around to stop your opponent from placing gems there. It kind of stalls them out. I love it. And we might actually start having to do individual reviews. But this one plays in 20 minutes. And it's quick to set up. It's a fun play. And then you're done.
And the component quality is actually very nice. The stones, there's nothing special about them, but they all feel good. It's nice thick cardboard.
Yeah, it's probably hard to see based on the camera we have. But they've got holes in it. That's where you're putting the gems, and it tells you how many points you get for how many you fill in.
And really, the stones don't move, which is actually pretty good for something like this, and especially for the price point we paid for it. This is my other 2-player Juve, and this is Agricola All Creatures. Now, he hates Agricola. He hates to feed my people. This is our compromise, because I love Agricola. We don't actually own the full Agricola anymore. We just own the 2-player. But I love all the little animals and building my little farm and putting out my fences. I just find it so much fun. And the meeples in here are really nice quality. I love that I get my little meeples and get to move them around. It's totally my type of game where it's not his. But to me, it takes all the best parts of Agricola and makes it so that he doesn't hate it. There's an app for this too. I think the app's pretty good, but there's just something about the nice chunky playing with the meeples and rearranging on the old farmstead that just, it can't be beat, that funness of that. We have like one of the building expansions. I don't, with as much as, if you played it a ton, you probably need both the expansions.
Yeah.
We don't play it enough that, you know, we have one of them and that's good enough for us.
Yep. So basically you're building your own individual farm. And you got to fence in the pens, and you still got to kind of feed your people, but it's not as punishing. You know, I don't like playing games where you're nerve-wracked whether all of your people are going to starve.
Well, and you still have to kind of do everything like you do in the full Agricola, but it's not as punishing.
Yep. This next one is a faster version of a game called Twilight Struggle.
And we own Twilight Struggle.
Yeah, but we've got a different one that'll
yeah, we
come
have
up.
a different one that's coming on the list.
So how you do this is you're moving around influence cards. Now this is 13 Days, the Cuban Missile Crisis 1962. And it deals with that event. The cards all have things that deal with that event. They're all historically accurate.
I've never yelled at it, and I have a master's degree in history, so it did a pretty good job.
And you're trying to gain influence in certain areas or control the media, and you're either Russia or the US, and you're trying to prevent nuclear strike. So you're gaining influence. You play a card. If I play a card that's for the opponent, so let's say I play a card that I'm the Americans, I play a Russian card, I will get to put influence cubes, but then the Russian person gets to do the event. So it's kind of a back and forth. Works incredibly well. 45 minutes, but it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of thinking. I think this one is a highly underrated game and should be considered for any history buff.
Well, if you like Twilight Struggle, but no, you don't get it to the table a lot, it's a good option for you for a faster version of it. This is Seven Wonders Duel. I love Seven Wonders, but Seven Wonders can't be played two-player.
It can, it's just badly.
Okay, we've never even tried. It's not worth it. I think we read the rules for the two-player version and went, just no. But this Duel works incredibly well. I love how the cards come out, and it's really important how you flip them, because as you remove them, there's some cards that are hidden and there's some that are face up. And depending on what card you play, that might reveal the next card. And whether you don't know what's under there, are you gonna let your opponent see that and possibly get it before you? And really controlling when those cards flip is a big part of how you win in this game. The expansion for this Pantheon gave these god powers, which were really cool as well, but I don't think it was absolutely necessary. I think the game was great without it. There's actually 3 paths to victory, just like there is in the regular Seven Wonders, but I think it's actually easier to win by each of the methods in this one. I think he's won an economic victory and I've won a military victory versus just the straight regular victory. I really enjoy it, and it gives me all that fun of Seven Wonders, but it allows me to play it two-player in a nice quick version. The setup doesn't take that long. There's an app for it. I'm not in love with the app, but it's okay. But I really enjoy the mechanics of when the cards reveal, and I think that was a really well done way to fix the problem of two-player drafting, and they really made it work in this game.
All right, I did some lighter ones. This is called Fields of Arle. This is an Uwe Rosenberg, so that's the designer. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and it is a worker placement. So you're going to put a worker, you have a set of workers, in this case 4. You're going to put them down in different spots to get resources or change resources, and you are building up your farm. I like this one a lot better than all of his other ones, and I wish I could tell you why. You're still moving things forward. You're still making, at least some pens. But it's just got a lot of stuff you can do, and I don't feel as strained. But this one is also designed strictly for 2 players. It can be played solo as well, but it's designed for 2 players. And you start out, mining peat out of your farm, and it just goes from there. Lots of fun. I actually like this one more than you do, which is surprising.
I think it's one of those games I need to play more to do. There's a lot of negative points on the board, and the goal is to cover those negative points, and that's how you increase your score.
Yeah.
But no, it is like, I think, and I think there is the farm, because he didn't want to put all the little stickers on the cows to give them the dots. I went through and did it, because that's very satisfying to see little cows on your field.
Yes, you
did. I was
did.
willing to put all of them on there.
I was not.
This is what we put on instead of Twilight Struggle, and obviously we have both, but this is the new version of 1960. They just reprinted it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Because it was on our Grail list, but we weren't willing to pay it, and then they reprinted it, so yay! And this is the 1960 election, Nixon versus Kennedy, and you're going to try to get the electoral votes and see who wins the 1960 elections, and you can control the media. There's a debate thing, very historically accurate. As someone who teaches history, I just love the historical nature of it. And much like 13 Days or Twilight Struggle, there's all these cards, and if you play your opponent's card, you could be giving them something because they're going to get the event. And so there's a lot of really good strategic decisions in here, and I just really enjoy it. And I enjoy the event too. The 1960 election is such an interesting election to be able to do this. And I have not yet won as Nixon, but I will.
All right. One Small Step is a brand new game. We kickstarted it. It arrived 3 weeks ago. But this is the space race. You may notice that both my wife, both Jenny and I, like historical games that recreate things. And this is the space race. And I will tell you, it is a race. You're trying to get cards out there. You're trying to collect cards that help you. You're trying to get resources so that you can do a launch, and a proper launch, and it's between the US and the Soviets. It is a solid 2-player game, though they say it can be used as a team. Reading through the rules for that, it sounds more complicated than it needs to be. Also, this is an Academy Games game. So that's the company that produces it. I will tell you, their games in general are amazing, and the rule books are awful.
Yeah, we got through our first play of this a couple nights ago, and there was a lot of swearing at the rulebook. Even the setup wasn't well done in the rulebook. This might definitely be one that we need to do a review of once we played it a couple more times individually. But we really enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun doing it. It was a really close.
Yep.
It really came down to the last turn, and he got a launch out before I did, and he won. But had I gotten one more turn, I would have won. And so it's nice. They do have a really nice. We played with. They have like a beginner board, and then you take it off, and it's more complicated. Which I like that it gave you. For a complicated game, it's nice to have an easier intro, a couple less things to do to play your first game, and then take it away. And, okay, I already know the mechanics. Now I can deal with the rest of the iconography. Because the iconography at times was a little bit thing. What's really cool about this, and they do it, Manhattan Project does this too, is that your workers, you have administrators and you have scientists. And they only go, they're engineers. They're engineers and administrators. But there's certain actions that require one or the other, and you have to think about when you're going to use each one, because some can do either, but not all of them, and you have to make sure you have the right type of meeple left to do the actions you want to do, and that's really cool in that they've got specialized jobs. It's not just any meeple will work. It's I need an administrator to do this media. I need an engineer to get this launch done.
So, all right.
This is another game that you could play. It's another Academy Games. We own a lot of Academy Games. There's only been a few that we haven't liked, but this is another one where it's really a 2-player game. It's the U.S., the American colonists versus Great Britain, but you could play it 2-player because there's 4 decks and you're allied. You have the loyalists and then the, British regulars. You can play, So
you can break in teams.
Yes. And there's a whole series, Birth of America, and the same thing. All of them really can be played 2-player, where they're played pretty much teams, but they're different player counts for each one of them. This is the one that I find is more straightforward 2-player. It's very much a area control game. They're just little cubes. And you're trying to control as many cities, as many colonies as you can. But it's very historically accurate. You very much feel like you're fighting. You have individual dice for each of them. And what's cool is they depend on, the board's huge. But when you look at the dice, and so this is actually, that's not a good one.
They're not going to be able to see it with the camera.
Okay, well, it's still the thing. But the idea is that they're different probabilities. So like the British regulars will not run. There's a run option, there's a hit option, and there's a nothing option, a blank side.
The blank side does something, right?
I think that's a...
You can retreat?
You can retreat. It's a tactical decision. You get that decision. But flee means your guys run away, but you'll get them back. Whereas a kill, they go off the board and you have to re-bring them out and the whole thing. But like the British regulars won't run, but they hit more. Whereas, you know, some of the other ones will run more. And it's really neat that they have that scale. And so when you're deciding which ones to pull, because you get to pick when you have casualties, which side do I pull from? And each one has their own individual deck that has specific events and people that go with them. You have to control movement. So very much an area control game, but very historically accurate. It's definitely a longer, heavier game, but we always usually play this right around the 4th of July and feel like, you know, hey, we really got to play the American Revolution.
Well, and there's some really nice stuff with that one too. If you, and it could go quick, because the way the game ends is based on when the treaty cards that actually stop.
When all the treaties get, yeah.
So when the treaty cards come out, the game's over. So you got to watch for that.
That's like guessing myself. Treaty again, 1812, or this one? I'll have to look later.
When I don't want to think too hard, and those of you who have met me know that dice despise me. They truly, truly do not like me, but that's okay. I do love my dice. Dice Throne is a one-on-one. You each are a type of warrior, magic user, monk, something. And then you are going to try and beat on each other with a Yahtzee mechanic, trying to get certain combinations. But the kicker is there's a deck of cards that allows you to upgrade, and it allows you to do weird things to manipulate your dice. And you can put status effects on other people. Some of them are really defensive, like the monk. Some of them are really offensive. The pyromancer, light them on fire. And it flows really well.
Well, this is his small version. This is season 1. He has season 2 battle box, but it was like this big and this big. It would take half the table.
Yeah. So.
And you can play this with more than, we've played it for a player, and you can play it in teams. There's different versions, but it's best played, and it's meant to be played 2-player, one-on-one until one person defeats the other.
Yeah.
And some characters are definitely more complicated than others. Some are really straightforward and easy to play. So like if you had a new player or you want to just get into it, there's players easily you can choose that, oh, this is easy to throw down. Whereas there's other like, oh, I want to challenge. I want to play with this one.
Yep.
Okay, and this is Star Trek. This is Star Trek in a box. This is the original series in a box. I love the original series Star Trek. And I feel very much this is Star Trek just completely in a box because you're exploring. You don't know the board. The board's all flipped down. As you move into it, you flip over each space and their hexes, and you find out what happens. And you might be walking into a black hole or something crazy. And you're fighting different people, and the ships are really nice. It's definitely quite the production. And you can see here that you've got a lot of ships. And they each have their own little base. If you like miniatures, you're going to like this. I'm not a miniatures gamer, but this is my game. This is my Star Trek. I love the feel of it. And again, this is one of those games you could play. We've played it teams. 2-player, but it's meant to be played. It's meant to be a 2-player game. There's an expansion that adds another faction, and you can play it 3-player. But again, this is meant to be played 2-player, and it's best at 2-player. It's not meant to be played in a group, but it's just definitely one of those, like, if you enjoy Star Trek, you will enjoy the experience. It does take a long time to set up, and then it's a long game. So it's one of those games that, that you look at the side of the box and it's a long game, and then you have to realize you're just talking probably 45 minutes of setup beforehand too. So it's definitely something to consider. This is an all day, I'm going to set it up and play it. This is a game that if we play every other year, we're thrilled because we got it to the table.
Yeah. And this is similar to that. So this is Battle of the Five Armies. Now I hemmed and hawed because the previous game, the game before this, is War of the Ring. And it really is a two-player game too. But I sat back and thought about it and realized that that game I have only played in teams. Even though it's a two-player game.
You and I might have played it once.
Yeah. I've played it way more teams. This is a two-player game. This is the Battle of the Five Armies, so the end of The Hobbit. I actually, and people will revoke my geek card, but I haven't watched all of the Hobbit movies. Watched all of the Lord of the Ring movies. But, you know, I've read The Hobbit several times. And this is it. And it starts out with the goblins coming down. They have to win quickly because what ends up happening is the free people. So the other armies, the dwarves, elves, and humans, will start getting a lot of help.
Yeah, the eagles show up and the bear shows up.
Yeah,
okay, I have not read any of the books.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the movies, but I could never get to the books, and I'm sorry, I don't care to. I know, you're all going to be yelling at me, but that's okay. So I don't really, but I do like that I get all this cool stuff. It's definitely a game that as the free people, you want the game to continue lasting because you're going to get more and more stuff and you are going to win, whereas the other side needs to just shut you down immediately or you're going to take over. And
it's cards. You play cards and you roll dice. You're trying to control areas. You get resources for that or events for that. You can get more people for controlling stuff. You get points for controlling stuff. It is a great game. I think it's thematic. I enjoy it. But it doesn't get to the table mostly because of the setup time nearly as often as I'd like. So
we're definitely setup often is the biggest thing that stops us from many games. And so a game like Star Trek Fleet Captains or Battle of Five Armies or Lord of the Rings, we look at the setup time and just decide, no, we could play 2 games in the time it would take us to set up and play that one. So
all right, so that was our 2-player only games, and there are tons that, like Akatori, Undaunted, Targi. Oh, we got lots that we could have gone, but these are the ones that I also think a lot of people don't know are out there.
Well, and like some of them, like we have Starship Catan, which we know is almost impossible to find, and so I put that back because, well, no one can find it. So we really had to pare down. This was one of those that we could have talked about lots more, but and honestly most of the Academy games can all easily be played 2-player or in teams, so like I could have picked any of them in place of 1775.
So we may make a second list, or we may even make a list of games we just prefer to play 2-player, because that will include any of them. So
there's a lot of games that even though they're not 2-player only, we only ever play them 2-player. And, you know, but we felt that was its own list versus this list. Thanks for watching.